Thank you so much for tuning into my live video this morning. We actually got to see the market use these daily risk ranges in a little different way, which was very cool. We're going to bring that up in today's video as we get into some technical analysis for the SPY, Qs, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, NVIDIA, and AMD. We're going to go right into it. First, we're going to look at the daily ranges for today. How did we do around them? And then after that, we're going to get into the actual daily range for tomorrow. And I actually have a little surprise for you with NVIDIA. But before we get there, we're going to have to go through the SPY. As you can see, we're outside of that weekly expected move, but I wanted to start off by talking about these daily expected moves and how did we do today? Well, we mentioned that there was some bullish setups down in here. There's a 15-minute divergence. The Qs are even in a big 30-minute divergence. So we had to pay attention to the upside. That's why I put out a little bullish post yesterday. But now we're getting into a danger zone again where we're very overextended. Now, something cool about these risk ranges, we overall talked about it if we wanted to use these as support. So you'll notice that we gap above all of these resistances, which is something that we were mentioning yesterday. We said we'd have to fight through a bunch of resistances and this daily expected move, but we can use that to then head higher. So that's exactly what happened. We gap above the daily expected move, and then we kind of come down, find some support along this high here, this little zone right in here, and then we start to head higher, which is something that we mentioned in yesterday's video. I drew out a line and I was saying if we're able to see that really push above here, we can retest off of it and see more of that positivity come in as we are now in positive territory. Now we're outside the weekly and we're going to get to that in a moment. Let's pop over to the Qs. Now the Qs during the live video, this was very cool to watch. We were watching how it gapped above that daily range, came down in it for about 2 minutes, and then that's all it needed, and it kind of hovered there for a bit, used that as a little bit of support, and now it's coming up, testing this high at this point outside of the monthly. We're seeing that resistance come in, and we're actually right by that weekly expected move. So the SPY is actually making a higher move. If we turn from here, that would be kind of a difference that people pay attention to when the Qs aren't solidifying that we're making an upward move. Now, if we did want to see some kind of selling tomorrow, there still is a bullish scenario. So we're going to go over that after we go through the rest of these daily expected moves here in a moment. For the SPY, the new daily expected moves for this Friday close, and remember that we are outside of that monthly at this point, but we are in positive territory, but those would be 510.62 to the upside, 504.44 to the downside, and that is sitting pretty close to this high. So if we wanted to get some kind of retest, that would make a lot of sense. Now, we do have a lot of options expiring on the NVIDIA side of things, so we have to pay attention to that. Also, you're outside of this weekly expected move, which 68% of the time we do land back within that zone. So if we get excited early on in the day, look at those short time frames, see if we can get outside of this, maybe see some divergence up there, and that might be a good hint. Hey, we're going to pull back down at least into this zone by the end of the day. This will be really cool when we get to NVIDIA. Because we're actually going to give you those daily ranges for NVIDIA. So stick around for that part. We're going to give you the daily range for tomorrow that NVIDIA has when we get down to that in a few minutes. The big part here is also we left behind a gap. Okay, so we left behind a gap. This part here is going to be really important. If we do break down, really pay attention to that gap support in here, because if we see some kind of quick drop down and then we push back up, we really just want to watch this MACD. See if we're able to hold at this support here. And if we actually roll over, roll back up, maybe we do get some more positivity in this overall very strong move. From here, I would like to see some consolidation in the morning. If we get excited and keep going higher, then I'm going to be looking out for some kind of fading throughout the day. All right, now we're getting into the Qs, and we can see that resistance starting, right? We're starting this right here at the monthly and towards that weekly expected move. The good part is if you start to consolidate in front of these resistance levels, you actually can see that liquidity built up and then break through it. So really going to be paying attention to the top side. NVIDIA's up after hours again, so we'll pay attention to those daily expected moves. But what I would do is just look at the shorter time frame, see if this 15-minute is creating any kind of divergence that is outside of here, because it's a good shot that we're actually going to see that close back in this range by end of day. There's people who, especially on NVIDIA and other stocks, they have a lot of calls, and so they might want to take profit on those calls as they're expiring tomorrow. Now, one thing about the Qs that I think you can really look at is the 2-hour here. So overall, if you were in the live stream, we pulled up a 2-hour for a moment, and we just overall were stating, hey, you know, we're getting that. Well, tomorrow's daily range is actually going to be right at where you want that support to be, right at this gap right here, this gap support. And then we were mentioning, hey, if this is able to curl up, we can see more positivity. Guess what? We get that crossing bar in the morning there, and then we see that positivity come in. Now we're hitting a point of resistance, but if we're able to consolidate here, we could get a little push higher. The thing about this push higher, you would maybe be setting up some kind of divergence, which actually in the grand scheme of things would be a triple divergence. So if this is actually a strong move and then we see that kind of ripped away and that's able to cross down, you're actually going to see possibly a triple divergence that's getting you really close to negative territory. We're going to be right there. So right when everyone's euphoric, right when everyone's the most bullish possible, we could be seeing some kind of move that actually gets people trapped, and then we see that dropped. Now that is all a maybe. This is a very bullish move. Okay, so if we see this keep extending and then we see this actually able to get further into positive territory and keep curling up, we're going to see that positivity continue. But I wanted to give you both sides of the story because we're really at a point here where we're up in the unknown, right? We're in the all-time highs, so we can see a turnaround at almost at any point. One thing that would be ultimately bullish. So this is for the bulls. We're starting to spread out those Bollinger Bands again, right? We came down into the bottom of our weekly expected move. We see that big pop with those divergences. If this daily is able to cross over, we can see more of that positivity. So it is still a bullish move. We are not losing any moving averages. We're not losing any big supports. We're just at one resistance right now. And if we do get a push higher, will that then fade down throughout the day tomorrow with some profit taking? So if that does fade down, maybe we do actually come down to this level. GDP is next Wednesday, so that could be good news for the market as well. It seems like it's going to be positive again, so people might see that as positive news initially. We just want to pay attention to that. I'm starting to look at CPI because if CPI ticks up in March, then we are going to see a lot of change in tone from the Fed and change in tone from how people are feeling when it comes to inflation. We're almost to NVIDIA. We're going to give you those daily ranges in a moment, but first we got to tackle Apple. Apple, we were talking about on the daily here, you actually do have a slight divergence. These are about even at this point, and you do see that divergence down here, slightly up on the MACD and slightly up here from this low actually on the RSI, and these are about even, right? These two right here are about even. So we do have divergences here. That's one tick. We're getting above the 200 again. That's a good thing. This is all bullish stuff that can really lead to some kind of run in Apple, and maybe it's just lagging behind. So there's really two things to think about if Apple's not fully participating in this, right? Only up 1%. It was up, 0.3% most of the day, and then towards the end we ended up 1.12. The thing that could happen with Apple is a big stock. It's got a lot of big investors. So the fact that Apple's not fully participating in this move yet, it's a little bit worrisome on one point. It could be that why, you want to ask the question, why is Apple not participating if this is such a bullish thing and the Qs are up by almost 3%, but Apple's only up 1.12. That's something to think about. The other side is, what if it's just lagging behind? It could be lagging behind for once, right? Apple usually leads the market, but maybe it is actually leading behind and it does want to make a stronger move soon because we do have this 2-hour divergence that confirmed, and we have 2-hour divergence. We almost have a triple divergence across the bottom here. So that actually has confirmed. And then we do have a 30-minute that actually confirmed earlier yesterday. So yesterday we got that to confirm, and that's why we were really saying, hey, this could get bullish. Now, where it is at right now would make a lot of sense, even coming up a little bit higher. So if we saw a strong move in the morning, look for that to create some kind of handle, and then we can see more positivity to get us back into that zone. Really going to be paying attention to the top side of Apple's risk ranges that we give out on Patreon next week. I feel like next week, Apple's top side of its weekly range is going to be very important. Amazon, in our last video, we were stating, hey, we could come up and make a new high. We could come up and fill this gap because NVIDIA had those good earnings. That's what we did as of right now. We've filled the gap, but are we going to get some consolidation to head a little higher? Or is this going to solidify some kind of head and shoulders at this point? Really want to pay attention to that, but we're pretty far away from that negative territory. So really have to treat any downward action as some kind of consolidation. If we actually consolidate for a while, even come down and test into this zone again, and then curl back up, look for that MACD. You might roll over and roll back up into positive territory, meaning there's probably some more positivity in this move maybe coming up to test the high. Now we're at the high right now, so if it wants to flip over and go negative on us, you need that to get down into negative territory and break through this low right here, getting you back in this channel, maybe starting a negative trend. So both sides, but just to let you know, this is still a bullish thing, right? This is bullish because it's about to curl up a little bit on its daily scale here, and we have some room left on that Bollinger Band. And look where that Bollinger Band is landing, right at the point between our two most recent highs. So we need to pay attention to any kind of upside Amazon could produce. Maybe we get some kind of divergence here, and next week we see some profit taking or some kind of sell-off. Last thing I wanted to mention about Amazon is the fact that if we do go a little bit higher, we might be setting up some kind of triple divergence. You can see it down here on the MACD and RSI at the same time. So if we actually pop higher and then we get some kind of push down and break through this low, this could be a trap, and we could be getting a divergence between three highs. You see that divergence right here. If that's able to hold and confirm, we could get into negative territory very fast. So even though people are very euphoric right now, it is good to, and we could see more bullishness tomorrow and going into next week, it is good to be open to these signals. It is good to have an open mind, because if this flips the other way on you and people start hitting the sell button pretty fast for whatever reason, things can start to head lower pretty quick. Tesla, we've talked about that 2-hour divergence trade that we found, and we said overall, at this area, we would like it to come and retest in here, and that's exactly what happens. It's still closing above the 9-day moving average at this point, and we're still crossed on that MACD. So if this is able to get into positive territory, we can really see some positivity here. If it wants to briefly come outside of its Bollinger Band, this zone here is where some sellers could step in. So even though we're seeing a lot of bullish things, we're seeing some big stocks that are kind of lagging behind, and it's kind of up to them. Are they going to continue to push higher into next week, or are they going to kind of fade when they get to points of resistance? And that's really what we have to pay attention to. I really thought this was going to be a 5 push higher, 1, 2, 3, 4, and now maybe we get that 5, but watch out for some resistance up here. Now, if we're going to remain up there for quite some time, we could still see more bullishness. I would like to see us burst through this zone, retest around that 207.42, and then start to head higher again. That's overall what I'm looking at on Tesla. And now we can get into NVIDIA. All right, NVIDIA gave us that divergence down here. We were stating really pay attention if this is able to hold above the 20, because that could be a good sign. They really crushed the earnings. We're closing on the high of the day, which is just inviting more positivity. But you'll notice that daily expected move is only 808.90 to the upside and 761.60 to the downside. Now, we were overall stating how important the number 800 is. 800 has a huge call wall, and that could be, anything above that could be where people start to take profit. So you want to really watch out if people are really excited and this hits like an 830, 825, we could see that start to fade throughout the day. Now, if that doesn't fade and we actually get this MACD to cross up here, you could see 1 or 2 more days worth of buying, because we still have people in a lot of calls for the next couple weeks. Really pay attention to this. You're outside of the Bollinger Band, so we have to go into some 2-hour charts here, and what you're setting up is some kind of divergence at this point. So if we wanted to head a little bit higher and then fade, that would make a lot of sense from the technical standpoint, because you do have this little divergence right here that kind of gave us a little bit of a sell-off, right? We kind of went sideways and then started to sell off. That got dramatic right as we got into negative territory. So now we're setting up another point of divergence really close to negative territory. We could be seeing this flip and go the other way. And I know no one really thinks that could happen, but that's just what the charts are telling me. The way that I would be, very incorrect with saying this bearish scenario would be if this wants to continue and consolidate and continue, right? So if this is able to push higher into this positive territory, we can continue the positivity. We might see NVIDIA hit 1,000. AMD getting a strong day. Really, this is just going to react based on what NVIDIA does, right? We saw the earnings. It was actually bad, so you wouldn't expect people to want to buy this. We saw consolidation, even though the earnings was bad. Guess what? We remain at higher levels, and then NVIDIA gives us good numbers, which makes AMD pop. So there is still some room left in this. Above this high, going to be paying attention to my risk range for the week, the top side of that I give out on Patreon, down in the description if you do want to become a part of that. The thing with AMD is it is still not close to crossing on this MACD. So if this MACD actually wants to cross in the next few days, that would be huge, and we could see some major positivity there, because these Bollinger Bands are tight and we've been in consolidation for quite some time. So it's something to pay attention to. Now, if we wanted to get close to it and start to reject meaning this starts to go the other way, you'll actually notice on this MACD, we're pretty close to negative territory. So even though this is very euphoric and stuff like that, this could be some kind of sell the news event. And big word is could be. We really could see this continue over time. And I'm just paying attention to my 2-hour charts. My 2-hour charts are within positive territory now. So if they want to continue to be positive, then we're going to see a lot more upside in these. So if this wants to remain up here for quite some time, it's going to remain positive. We're going to see higher prices of these stocks. Now, if this wants to roll over at this moment, you have a subtle flatness here of the MACD. You don't have that on the RSI at the same time, but you would have an overall one here and that daily one forming. So there's just a few things to be a little bit cautious about, but this is very bullish. We just are hitting some levels we need to break through to go higher. The VIX Live, we were talking about this gap being filled. We actually talked about in the videos for the past couple of days. We really see us getting some kind of pop in volatility, and then we come and fill this gap, maybe even come all the way down and fill this one. The good part about that here is we can just watch this. So because we're possibly in some kind of triangle here, if we want volatility to scale up, see it break this, keep going up in positive territory. If that curls up in positive territory, VIX is now in a 2-hour positive trend. So that is what you really want to pay attention to going into tomorrow and over the weekend. 30-minute here is what I'm really looking at though, because I think we could see more positivity. So I believe that we could get some kind of 30-minute divergence that kind of tells us when the next volatility pop is coming. And what could that be? Well, it could be a fill of this gap way down here. So this gap down here, right around that 13 reading would be where we would land. We would come down into this area, create some kind of divergence up here, and make sure to wait till that gets into positive territory. But it's looking like volatility wants to remain in this market, but people are very bullish, and I have to agree with them. This is a very bullish move. I still want to bring this up, okay? TLT versus the actual SPY. We're actually seeing this remain down. It is remaining down. We've seen this difference for quite some time now, pretty much ever since, the beginning of February. The market still is actually getting a new all-time high, right? But TLT is down. So this is something that you want to pay attention to because it could mean smart money is actually selling while, people are kind of getting FOMO'd into this move. And the reason that I'm saying that is because the dollar here, big move in the dollar. And you have to think, well, who are the people right now who are sitting cash heavy? Well, that might be the smart money. The smart money might actually have been selling to us retail traders this whole time, and maybe this is about to make another move right at that 200. So it's something to pay attention to, something to be a little weary about. Even though the market is moving higher, it looks like smart money is out. And we actually went over some people live who were selling. Looks like Jeff Bezos just sold over the last week about $8 billion worth of Amazon. Looks like Zuckerberg actually sold a lot of Meta stock as well. So the big boys, these CEOs of these companies, are selling their stocks right now, and you need to pay attention to that, especially when the dollar looks like this, right? When the dollar is up and the market is up making a new all-time high, that usually is a good sign that something is coming around the corner. So the main takeaway here is this is a very bullish move, but is this bullish move going to hold? Because it looks like we're setting up some divergences once more. And guess what? No one would expect it if after NVIDIA earnings, we saw a huge pop in everything and then a huge drop the next week. I think that would be the perfect thing to bait them in. And things like the dollar are telling me that someone is sitting heavy in cash right now. And the only reason that they'd be sitting heavy in cash in my mind is, well, they might be waiting for something bad that's around the corner. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for showing up to the live, smashing that like button. I hope you guys are enjoying the daily ranges. I appreciate you guys giving me your time every single night. It really is awesome. And I wish you guys all the luck in the world trading tomorrow. And I hope you guys have a good night. Peace.